Hello everybody and welcome to the final day here at World Circuit Misano in the Goodyear FIA European Truck Racing Championship. We're very excited about today. We've got another qualifying session and 2 races coming your way. But one of the main differences today is that we have with us the traditional Italian weather. It is a lot sunnier outside. It is a lot warmer here at Misano today. The whole day should be a little bit more straightforward for our drivers, and I know that a lot of them will be hoping so as well. The likes of Norbert Kish, who had to come all the way from the back of the grid yesterday to take that amazing victory. Steffi Halm has her truck repaired as well, and Sasha Lenz will also be looking for a much more straightforward day with a better qualifying session. We're here for qualifying 2, and we're going to get things underway very shortly, but first, let's take a look back at some of yesterday's very best pictures. So yes, hello everybody, welcome to the second qualifying session here this weekend at World Circuit Misano in the Goodyear FIA European Truck Racing Championship. We hope you're having a fantastic weekend wherever you may be in the world. You've got myself, Chaz Draycott, Joachim Eberts and Fonzie Sebrian commentating on the English, German and Spanish streams for today. We're going to be having this qualifying session and then 2 more races to cap out the weekend, and it's certainly going to be a busy day for our drivers once more. We've got a bit more of a tightly packed schedule today as well, so we have a lot less time between the 2 races. Yesterday's second race didn't finish until nearly 7 p.m. But here is the circuit that we're at, the wonderful Misano. I love this place, I really, really do, here on the northeastern coast of Italy. We have a very tight and twisty section everywhere you look on this circuit. We have a very long back straight down to the left-hand at Curva Quercia, and then Curvone on the long back straight down towards Curva Caro is a real overtaking opportunity for our drivers, but so many of them have to be so careful through there because it's really easy to overly compromise your line, overdo it, and then have a poor time into Curva Caro and just go a little bit too hot into there and not be able to get the exit that you would want. But as you can see, the sun is out here at Misano. There's a little bit of humidity in the air still today, so it doesn't look as blue as it did about half an hour ago. But I tell you, this morning, the jackets and coats and umbrellas and hoods that you would have seen us all wearing yesterday, not as necessary. But as you can see there by the fans, there's a lovely breeze blowing the flags around here today, so it doesn't feel as hot as it actually is. You know, the fans and everybody being very careful, applying the sunscreen, still making sure that we don't get burned. But everyone is looking forward to a great day's racing here at Misano. The number of fans that we've got here today is fantastic. There's so many of them turned out for this event. And we love having the fans in the paddock and everybody supporting the championship as best they can. And right now, as the siren sounds, the session gets underway. And now it is Jochen Hahn that leads them out of the end of the pit lane ahead of Antonio Albertetti and then Andre Curzim behind him, then Jose Eduardo Rodriguez, Stefan Faas, Jonathan Andre in the number 66 machine, Sasha Lenz next up in truck number 3, John Newell, truck number 18, Heinrich Clemens Hecker in the number 25 Scania, followed by Mark Taylor in the number 81 MAN, 64 Iveco of Louis Requenco, Steffi Howell, number 44 Iveco, great to have her back on the grid today, and of course, reigning champion, looking for the hat-trick, Norbert Kish. The Hungarian came all the way from the back of the grid yesterday to take the race victory, and he's certainly going to be hoping that he doesn't have to come from further down at the back of the grid today. Him and the team, of course, very confident. I spoke to Csaba Bako yesterday after he saw the performance that Norby put in. It was just amazing. He was over the moon with the fact that they really, really drove away from the field. And at the end of the day, as a team and as a driver, you want the best victory possible with a humongous gap. Obviously, the start of the day for Norby was not great. You know, he had the technical issue in the first race, which is why he started further down the order. But that drive through the back was sensational yesterday. So everybody now just trying to find a bit of open space on the circuit, try and find a bit of clear air. Very important time in the qualifying sessions is to get that clear bit of track around you and make sure there's no rivals, nobody that could hinder your lap times, for example. And Jochen Hahn is the one in the perfect spot because he is right at the front of the field and able to break away from everyone else. He controls the pace at the front, and whether he wants to take it easy and have a lap, just building up the temperature gradually in the brakes and in the tyres and moving the truck around and just getting a feel for how it's behaving at the moment. And he can take his time and enjoy himself at the very front of the pack. There's Stefan Faas in the number 24 Scania. Stefan with a new sponsor for this season, Man Filter, hence the big yellow amount of the livery on the rear end. The truck's come powering past my commentary box. I'm in the building on the right-hand side of your shot, just next to the podium, as you saw there. When I introduced the stream, I was in my commentary position. I was supposed to show you my laptop and mixer and so on, but still, I got too excited by the weather. Anyway, Jochen Hahn leads them round, and he will be the first one to set a time during this session today. I'm excited to see what sort of pace he can unlock in the truck this time round. And there you see John Newell in truck number 18. He's going to be pushing hard this weekend. I was having a chat with his team during the free practice session just earlier this morning, and they were saying it's another learning year for John. You know, he's still got some great experience at the end of last year at Le Mans and Jarama. Still for this season, there's a bit of learning to be done, and you can't just jump into a championship like this and be at race-winning pace. You know, the guys are being very realistic about it, and they're certainly enthusiastic about what can be achieved as the season goes on. There is Sasha Lenz in the middle of the field at the moment. Sasha going to be looking for a much stronger performance in today's qualifying without technical issues. The main reason that he had problems yesterday was because there were technical issues that stopped him going back out onto the track. And that's the worst thing as a driver, is that, you know, when you have a technical problem like that, it's not something that's in your control. I mentioned it yesterday when Norbert Kish had his issues. When it's just the vehicle letting you down, or just a component, or just something that you cannot control, or something you haven't done yourself, it is the most frustrating thing as a driver to have that sort of problem, because there's just no way around it. You know, you can have the team fix the machine, but in the heat of the moment, and in that moment right there and then, there is just no way. There is no way that a driver can sort of instantly get over the emotions of just how something like that can affect you. So right now then, the times are going to come through the board, or come onto the board, I see. Across the line they go, and there are times coming through. I'm just waiting to see now who we get over the line first. Let's see. Well, sorry, who sets the fastest time first, I should say. Who manages to get the best out of their truck from the very beginning. There's no times coming through yet, by the look of it. No times on our timing screen anyway on the left-hand side. And there we go, Norbert Kish with a 2:02.150, Jochen Hahn second place, but still 1.1 seconds off at the moment. It's amazing the difference, isn't it, between the two? Instantly here, Norby just sets a really, really solid lap time and hopes to, of course, get the biggest gap possible before then going back out again, potentially. He might even hold off before Super Bowl, as we see. He often does that, doesn't he? And Steffi Halm, after having a poor day yesterday, now sits in third position, 1.24 seconds off. But look at the gap there. Antonio Albertetti, only 0.02 of a second behind. It's very, very close between those pair. But Steffi certainly making something work around here for this weekend. And I must apologise by ways of my audio quality a moment ago. I think there was a potential issue with the audio mixer I was using. We've been sharing it this weekend with another championship that was doing some racing this evening and yesterday, and I think in some of the settings and things that were changed, it's swapped around, and yeah, something's gone awry there. So I do apologise, everybody, but hopefully it all sounds nice and clear now. I absolutely adore this headset to pieces, so if it ever lets me down, I don't think I'd ever be able to get over it. But still, away from that, we've got a session underway, and Jochen Hahn, I can tell you, is already into the pit lane. He's just come down past my commentary box. And at the moment, we still have a bunch of drivers out there, but as you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, Jochen Hahn, Andre Kurzim, there's Jose Eduardo Rodriguez coming into the pits as well. He's the fastest in the Promoters' Cup at the moment. And right now he's got Stefan Fast right behind him in that category. But it seems like Jose Eduardo is confident enough now to just sit in the pits and wait till Super Pole. So for those of you that don't know, the top 10 in this session will advance to a Super Pole session where they will then go out again for another 10 minutes, try and get some laps in, and then that will set the actual positions for the top 10 on the grid. And then the other drivers outside of that, currently Taylor, Hecker and Newell, will get fixed into 11th, 12th and 13th positions. They will not advance. They will not get another chance to improve their lap times. There's Jonathan Andre and the number 66 Lion Truck Racing Machine. Beautiful livery on their truck this season. He was completely fluorescent yellow last year, but they've gone for this almost military grey and white look with the traditional yellow highlights that the team has always run. And it looks very, very solid around that final sector there. There's Jonathan Andre. He's not as experienced as a lot of the drivers on our grid, actually. He's only got a handful of starts from last season, but he's certainly been putting the time in, and he's certainly been working hard on sorting the truck out. Of course, Jonathan took over after the tragic loss last year of the wonderful Anthony Janiak, who we sadly lost partway through the season. And our thoughts and prayers still go out to his family and friends and everybody. It was a humongous loss to the whole community of truck racing and everybody involved. But Jonathan Andre is flying the flag for Lion Truck Racing and doing a great job of it as well. He's moved up to 8th position now. Only a 10th of a second, though, ahead of Louis Requenco. And Sasha Lenz is still down there in 10th position. He's not having a good session here. He's another 10th and a bit off Louis Requenco. Louis just crossing the line now. John Newell has improved as well. Look at that, 0.004 of a second ahead of Jonathan Andre. So great stuff by John Newell, trying to get through to Super Pole. He got a trophy out of yesterday as well in the Promoters' Cup. Sasha Lenz is crossing the line now, and we'd imagine that he's going to pop up the board. There you go, second fastest, Sasha Lenz. Great job. 0.3 of a second off Norbert Kish. That's a very, very impressive time by Sasha. And a great turnaround after what was a difficult day yesterday. I spoke to the wonderful Steve Miller in the evening and had a chat with him about how the day went. And, you know, these things are just racing sometimes. They don't want to sort of sit around and complain about it all the time. They just want to get on with the session that comes next.
and get the best out of it, because at the end of the day, as a driver, that's all you can focus on, is continuing to move forward with your weekend and get the most out of whatever comes next. That was Mark Taylor in the number 81 machine, just going up towards turns 9 and then 10 at the very top, which is up at Curva Tramonto. And then we have here on our screens Heinrich Clemens Hecker in the Scania. Very interesting looking machine for Heinrich Clemens Hecker. He's got a lot of very jagged bodywork on the thing. That's one of the best bits about truck racing, is that they may be a set sort of make and model underneath in terms of the chassis, but when you see the chassis rails on these things and the amount of freedom of development that these drivers and these teams have, it really is an amazing formula, because they can make the trucks look all weird and wonderful. You know, a lot of the MANs that you see here, like Jonathan Andre's truck, they have completely different front ends based on what the teams do with the aerodynamics and how they develop it and what they can sort of mold the front bumper into without taking away too much of the shape. There are obviously limits that they have to stay within, but there is an amazing amount of work that they can do to really define the front end of their vehicles and make them as fluent and as obviously efficient as possible. So Jonathan Andre slowing down across the line. He's clearly not completely happy with that lap and wants to wind up to have another go. This is Mark Taylor that was just crossing the line. And here is Heinrich Clemens Hecker into the pit lane. He's currently down in 12th position. And he is joining Louis Requenco and Mark Taylor at the moment of the drivers that will not make it through into Superpole. Jonathan Andre is the one that's on the cusp at the moment. Louis Requenco only really has to find about a tenth of a second, maybe a little bit more, just to overtake Jonathan Andre. John Newell certainly feeling that he needs to improve just to make sure that he doesn't get caught out here by the end of the session, because it's only going to take an improvement by 2 of the drivers below them to just knock them out of that top 10 and that all-important Superpole opportunity. And there is the number 44 of Steffi Halm. Great to see that Steffi is back on the grid today. We were so worried yesterday after the issue that they had to have the entire engine out. They had to work with the gearbox. There's the amazing Richard Keinberger, the photographer, working away. Or at least I believe it was Richard. Apologies if it wasn't Richard. And into the pits comes Sasha Lenz. We saw him there, and here's our beautifully placed camera. I believe this is Torsten Kelterborn that is manning our camera today, what we call the RF2 camera, which is roaming around the pit lane and the paddock. And Sasha Lenz comes into the pit lane to finish his session in second place. There's still 7 minutes to go, so there's trucks circulating, trying to improve further down the order. But Sasha will be happy with that one for sure. They're just checking the tyre pressures, making sure everything is all spot on. Obviously, they don't do tyre changes or anything like that in these sorts of sessions. You know, changing a tyre and a wheel on these trucks takes a long, long time. And it's not something that can be done very, very quickly. But of course, one thing that we need to remember from last season that was really exciting was the opportunity in the study project that was put together. The idea that basically we could go truck endurance racing in the future. There would be obviously tyre changes, the refueling pit stops, there'd be all sorts going on. And there was a feasibility study, that's the one, by the FIA. And yeah, we could certainly go endurance truck racing in the future. And I tell you what, wherever that may be, you can count me in. I'll certainly be there. So looking at the lap times, there's not a huge amount of change at the moment, but look between 12th and 13th there, Heinrich Clemens Hecker and Mark Taylor. Only 5 thousandths of a second between those pair, 4 thousandths of a second between Newell and Jonathan Andre. And further up the order, Steffi Halm is only ahead of Antonio Albertetti by 2 thousandths of a second as well. It's really, really close in this championship all of the time. You know, there's so many great fights up and down the order that we get to see, whether that be in the race or whether it be in qualifying as well. That's John Newell just making his way around turn 3, up towards the heavy braking zone at turn 4. You've got to swoop the truck around turn 5, try to tighten it to the right-hand side, because that then opens up the left-hander here at turn 6 onto the back straight. Now, the gradual left curve of this back straight is considered turn 7, and then he's on his way down to Curva Coesia, which is turn 8. Very aggressively cambered turn 8. And there is your current pole sitter, Norbert Kish, with the fastest lap time at the moment, standing at a 2:02.150. Sorry, I nearly read out his last time, which was his in-lap. That was 3 minutes 42. There's Sasha Lenz, currently second fastest. He'll be really pleased with that lap. He's got the job done so far, and he gets a little bit more time to relax now and focus on the Super Pole session ahead. Still more work to do. There is Heinrich Clemens-Hecker. He's got work to do for sure, because he is down there in 12th place right now. 4.28 seconds off the fastest time. We always do get a bit of a spread in the overall pace in these qualifying sessions, but when it comes to the racing, it's so much closer between everybody. There is Antonio Albacete, the absolute superstar of Spanish racing. He's been around a long, long time as Antonio, but that does not stop him. He is still one of the very finest drivers in the world. He's raced in all sorts, from touring cars to Formula cars. He's raced in open wheelers for a long, long time as well. He was Spanish Formula Renault champion and Spanish touring car champion in 1 year, in 1990. He won 2 championships in 1 year. And he used to be a factory driver for Fiat, BMW, and Opel during the 1990s in what's called CET in Spain, which is basically like the Spanish Touring Car Championship. And let's not forget that he is a 3-time Goodyear FIA European Truck Racing Champion. He won those 3 titles in 2005, 2006, going back to back, and then another one in 2010. Here we see Mark Taylor on his way down the back straight once again, making the most of the track time that he's got here to just throw the truck around and make it work. It was a steering failure yesterday. There was an issue with one of the components in the steering rack that basically lost him all steering. You can see he's really pushing hard. Oh, he's actually gone straight on at Curva del Carro at the bottom of the hill. He's gone way past where he should have been. And that's the thing. You're trying to hook the truck into the inside and get it slowed down while also balancing the rear end. And it's so easy to snatch a break. And he now rejoins the circuit. It's going to be a very fast final couple of corners, that's for sure. But he's now going to have to wind up for another lap, that is for sure. Mark Taylor across the line once again, then to try and get more out of this session. And this is the thing, it's such a difficult circuit to get something out of. It's so hard to completely piece a lap together around here. There's a lot of very, very tight sections where it's very stop-start, and it's all about the control on the throttle and, of course, balancing the truck on the brakes. Plenty of wonderful shots from around the pit lane and around the paddock of the teams working on the trucks. They never stop, to these teams. They are always busy, always doing something. And these trucks demand a lot of attention. They are really, really incredible, tight-knit machines. Keeping my eye on the lap times, though, to see if there's anybody else improving, but doesn't look like any major improvements at the moment. Heinrich Clemens-Hecker has improved, but still hasn't moved up a position. He's now done a 2:05.973 in his Scania, with his teammate Stefan Faust inside the top 10, and there is Stefan on your screen now. A gorgeous Tank Pool 24 machine. It's a really good-looking race truck, is that. They have these awesome slogans that they have up the door over the course of the season, and all over their other actual logistical trucks as well that they bring to the circuit, with which the team travels all the way around Europe. It's such a great series for tying itself into an industry as well. It's got this amazing close connection with the industry, and as you see, from our live streams and from all of our broadcasts and our social media content, there is so much going on in the championship all the time. And there's so many things, even off the circuit, over the course of the weekend. Some of the sustainability methods that the championship follows and really promotes outside of that in the actual industry itself as well. There's so many things on display here. It's awesome. The number 66 machine is under investigation for overspeeding, I've been told. So they are being looked at just to make sure that they haven't exceeded 100 miles an hour. 160 kilometers an hour. because these trucks are governed to 160 kilometers an hour. It's basically the fact that, for safety, you cannot have these things exceeding such speeds, and the drivers have a real artwork or an art form of making sure that they don't exceed said 100 miles an hour. And there is Sasha Lenz's machine, the number 3, parked in the pit lane. He wears the number 3 as he finished there last season. And we see now some of the fans up on the balconies there of the grandstands. But the checkered flag comes out, and it is looking like we're going to get Taylor, Rikwenko, and Hecker progressing no further here. And once again, it is Norbert Kish that is fastest, and you can see Jochen Hahn making his way down to the end of the pit lane there. So what the trucks will do now, the ones that got through into the top 10, they will make their way down to the end of the pit lane in the order with which they finished that first part of the session. So it'll be Norbert Kish, Sasha Lenz, Jochen Hahn, Steffi Helm, and Antonio Alberthetti. It's the benefit of going fastest in that first part of the session, is that you get to be nearer the front of the queue that goes out for Super Pole. So there is at least some benefit to it, you see. It's not just for bragging rights, to go fastest in the first part of the session. But it's great to see Steffi Helm back out there in 4th position as well in that session, after the issues that she faced yesterday. And of course, afterwards we spoke to Lissy Reiterer, the trucker babe that we have here this weekend. They're filming for their show, actually, here this weekend, and I keep seeing them in and around the paddock, and they certainly seem to be enjoying themselves. It's a long day of filming, though, by the look of it. Lissy was saying yesterday that she really did have a long day of it, but she certainly enjoyed herself and is loving the truck racing. It's a hell of an experience, and I always advocate for it, and I will always tell people that they, if you haven't seen truck racing in person before, if you haven't been able to get to a race meeting, whether it be a national championship or whether it be the Goodyear FIA European Truck Racing Championship, I urge you to go. I really do. It's amazing. Absolutely is. And it seems there that Jonathan Andre has had his lap deleted for overspeeding. So the stewards have had a look into it, and they've deemed that for too long he was over 100 miles an hour. There is a tiny window where the drivers can exceed it, but then have to get back underneath it within a certain time. So it's a very small window, so it's barely something that they could even know about that they are doing, if that makes sense. They could barely recognize the fact that they are overspeeding before they can do something about it and get back under it without at least some not extreme measures, but you would have to brake probably to make sure that you get back underneath very quickly. But there is 8 I should say, no, I said 7 then, sorry, 8 of our trucks ready to go. Norbert Kirsch leading them in number 1, of course, because he, Sasha Lenz behind him, and then Jochen Hahn behind him, finished 1, 2, 3 in the championship last season, and they wear their respective numbers for this year, which I really love. It's something I've grown up with seeing in championships, is that drivers carry their finishing position as a number the following year. And a lot of the other drivers, of course, just carry their preferred number or the team's preferred number. I'm sure there's some great stories behind them, actually. It'd be quite cool to see if we can extract that and maybe use it for something over the course of the year. We'll have to get talking to some drivers and see if there are any superstitions or anything after that. Where the famous number 44, which Steffi Helm carries, obviously the same number as Sir Lewis Hamilton. He has always carried the number 44, apparently, because it was one of the first karts that he ever raced, like one of the very first heats that he ever did. In his young karting days, he was given the number 44, and he wanted to stick with it from there. It's a lot often very similar situation with a number of drivers that come through their career. They get attached to certain numbers that they get given early in their career. But there are others, especially in the world of sim racing and esports, where I come from, where they tend to just have their birth year. So a lot of them are in the 80s and 90s, as you can imagine these days. But the siren sounds here at Misano, and the trucks make their way out onto the circuit. Looks like we've got everybody at the moment. Just going to see if we're missing anybody. There's John Newell making his way through. Now we've got 9 trucks out there at the moment. Norbert Kish, Sasha Lenz, Jochen Hahn, Steffi Halm, Antonio Albertetti, Andre Kurzim, Jose Eduardo Rodriguez, Stefan Fass, and John Newell. And I've just heard from underneath, as it's shaken the commentary box, there is another truck making its way out onto the circuit now as well, which I will catch when it leaves the end of the pit lane. It's Jonathan Andre, of course, in the number 66 line truck racing machine. But the entire queue is staying quite close together here at this stage. Normally at this point you would see the drivers at the front really pushing and getting away from everybody else, and some of the drivers behind just slowing down slightly, just to spread themselves out and make sure that they get a decent amount of air. But it's like a convoy at the moment, isn't it? They're all just following one another along as if there's invisible trailers between them. But right now, Norbert Kish, maybe not under pressure as such from Sasha Lenz, because it's not a race scenario, but Sasha is still filling the mirrors, almost urging him to get on with it. And we continue to get on with it with 100% renewable HVO diesel powering all of our race trucks. There is an immense reduction in the emissions of these machines, up to 92% in all of our renewable HVO diesel trucks. And I was talking to a wonderful member of the paddock this morning, actually. Michael Nimch is here, the managing director of Trailer Dynamics, who worked with Krona on the Krona e-trailer, which we will be talking about at another point of the weekend. And we were discussing the fact that because they are on HVO diesel, you know, people don't realise that these are running on such a clean biofuel. You know, it's amazing. And the fact that we don't have any loss of the noise, the power, or the spectacle of these trucks because of that, it's just awesome. I mean, the noise they make now as they rumble past the commentary box and down the start-finish straight is really epic. They are some of the loudest racing machines I've heard before. They don't make a screaming V12 sort of noise or a low rumbly V8. It's just an absolute rolling thunderstorm of power. A racing truck, it's amazing. Somebody clearly lighting up the rears there, having a big old drift through turn 3. I believe that could have been either Jochen Hahn or Steffi Halm, just hanging the back end of the truck out slightly. Norbert Kish now pushing on at the front of the field. We all know that this is Norby's time to shine in qualifying. This is where he shows his incredible one-lap pace. And as I mentioned yesterday, one of the scary things about that awesome truck, Baloo, the gorgeous red Baloo, is the fact that with Norby at the wheel, they can match their race pace to their qualifying pace a lot of the time. He can do the same pace no matter what the session. And he can get the gap and then start to look after the tyres a little bit later on in the race and manage it from there. There's Jose Eduardo Rodriguez in the middle of the pack with Stefan Fass behind him. Andre Kurzim just in front, and just ahead of him is Antonio Albertetti. There's some of the wonderful scenery here at Misano. It's got a gorgeous backdrop to it, look. The circuit is very beautifully located. It's right near the beach as well. Only a couple of 100 meters in a straight line, and you will be at the beach here at Misano Adriatico. We are right on the northeastern coast of Italy, near Rimini. Another very famous location here in Italy. And again, one that I really urge you to come to if you've never been to this part of the world before. I've been fortunate enough to travel to Misano a number of times now for different championships and events. And it is just an awesome place to be. The circuit itself is wonderful too. So lap times coming in on the board then. We were getting 2:02s earlier on from our drivers at the very top of the board, and it's another 2:02.222 for Norbert Kish. So he's certainly getting all of the twos out there today. And in P2, in Truck 2, is Jochen Hahn, but he's not in the 2:02s. It's a 2:03.025. 2:03.079 for Sasha Lenz, and a 2:03.089 for Steffi Halm. So again, only 1/100th, 10,000ths of a second between the two of them. That is less time than it takes us to blink. It's remarkable, incredibly close. Antonio Albacete fits into 5th position ahead of Andre Kursim. And then Jose Eduardo Rodriguez is the highest place in the Chrome category. Chrome is the categorization for drivers that are, well, those that haven't basically won a championship in the last 10 years or haven't finished in the top 7 in the championship the previous season, and drivers that haven't qualified more than once in the top 5 of Superpole in the previous year. It also excludes drivers that are either platinum or gold as of the FIA driver categorization. So consider it as our Pro and Am classes, if you will. I think Norbert Kirsch is happy with that lap time there because he's slowed it down slightly, and he's now letting Jochen Hahn make his way past. It's trucks 1, 2 and 3 at the minute in 1, 2 and 3. Steffi Helm is then in truck 44 in P4, and if you add Antonio's 2 and 3 together from the 23, you get 5. I'm really, I'm clutching at straws here, but still, another highlight of today is the fact that we've got Steffi Helm back out on track, and it is lovely to see because of the engine rebuild they had to do and the massive amount of work yesterday. I went to the awning just before we did the second race broadcast and tried to have a look at what was going on and see just how much work was having to go in, and the entire engine came out, and it was a big old crane job as well. They had to really pull the truck apart. Steffi was saying they just couldn't find the room to work on it, essentially. You know, they had to just get the engine out. They couldn't leave it in there and sort of restrict the accessibility to certain components to try and test them and work on them, because for a while they didn't know what the issue was. There, going into the last corner, is Sasha Lenz in truck number 3, the Apollo Tyres SL Truck Sport 30 machine. Jochen Hahn has just crossed the line in truck 2. And there goes Sasha Lenz. He's followed by Steffi Helm, Antonio Albacete there as well. He's got Stefan Fast just behind him. Then Andre Kursim. There is Andre. And he's got Jose Eduardo Rodriguez very close behind him, actually. Normally the trucks really do spread themselves out. They don't sort of get affected by slipstream so much, but they have to stop once they hit 100 miles an hour anyway. They have to stop accelerating. You can see that Norbert Kish has come into the pit lane. He's that confident with the time. He's playing the mind games here. He says, look, I've done a lap. You can have that. And that's it. John Newell, currently in 9th place at the moment, but he's inside the top 10, which he'll be happy about. Getting into Superpole is another step up the ladder for John. He'll be pleased with that. And I had a good chat with his team this morning as well. They're not the biggest team in the paddock at all, you know. It's a wonderful, wonderful group of guys that work very, very hard on preparing that truck. John's always bringing his family to all the events as well, and it's great to see them enjoying the sunshine as well today. It's much nicer today, and everybody's got big smiles on their faces. You can see Andre Kursim there pushing very hard through turn 8, and you can see Stefan Fast with the indicator on, saying, look, I'm going over to this side, guys. You make your way through. I'm not on a fast lap. He's got 1.25 minutes to get round and try and start a new lap if he wants to really, really go for it. The number 66 machine was apparently under investigation again. That's Jonathan Andre for overspeeding. He was 41 seconds off the pace on that previous lap, so I believe that was just down to having a slow lap to wind it up and get ready for another run. Steffi Helm is under investigation as well for track limits, actually. And I believe we're going to get the news in just a moment. Our wonderful colleague Daria is providing us with all of the information today. We do still have Babs Barbara on board for the championship as well. She's basing herself from the UK this year, so won't be on site for the events, and we all miss her dearly, but we know that she is still very much involved and certainly loves following the championship from back at home. So hello to Babs and the boys. Here is Jochen Hahn then on a fast lap now, trying to improve. You can see that, actually, sorry, they've just completed a faster lap, improving. I thought they were going into turns 9 and 10 then. I did wonder why it had taken them so long to get around the lap, but it's Sasha Lenz that's now moved in front. 0.571 of a second off the top time, and then Jochen Hahn just behind next up. Checkered flag will come out now for the next trucks that cross the line. And I'm not sure if these guys are on a fast lap or not. It seems like Jochen is pushing a little bit, so he's definitely going to be trying to improve and get back on that front row so he can face off against Norby. But look at Sasha really launching the MAN through there. Hanging the back end out slightly. And Norbert Kish, just below my commentary box, is now making his way into the scrutineering bay. And we wait now to see whether Jochen and Sasha can turn up the wick any further. And to be fair, I mean, it's very clear when these guys are on a slow lap or they're just making sure that the truck is prepared to go back at full chat again. And Jochen is really on one here. He's pushing all the way into Curva del Carro. You can see the steam coming off the front wheels there. That's the water jets that cool the brakes down on these trucks. So on the exit of the corner, when the water is still sort of residing on the brakes and evaporating, you'll see a lot of steam as they head out of the corners. It's another really cool aspect of this championship. The brakes tend to run at about 450 degrees. Jochen stays all the way over to the right-hand side of the straight, trying to improve and grab second position back off Sasha Lenz, but his last lap was a 2:03.4. His best time is a 2:02.9 for Jochen Hahn. So no improvement this time around for him. The sun has just bathed the circuit in light once again. It's certainly looking beautiful out here at Misano today. This is what we normally expect from this place. It's not as hot as it has been before, though. At the moment, it's only just over 20 degrees right now because there's a lovely wind in the air that's keeping things a little bit cooler. But we've been here before in temperatures of 38 degrees Celsius, you know, nearly touching on 40 degrees Celsius here at Misano. Last year, it was an absolute scorcher, and a lot of the teams and their equipment were really struggling, actually, to cope with the heat. Slovakia ring last year was probably the hottest we've ever raced in. It was ridiculous temperatures. It was over 42 degrees at some days, and there was no shade whatsoever at Slovakia ring, so it was certainly a time to try and cool off, and it was not possible whatsoever. But that is the session completed then, and it is going to be Norbert Kish that takes, once again, another pole position here in the Goodyear FIA European Truck Racing Championship. And he's going to start ahead of Sasha Lenz, or alongside Sasha Lenz at least, on the front row of the grid. Then we're going to have Jochen Hahn and Steffi Halm, the two teammates for Die Bullen von Iveco. Andre Curzin will be fifth ahead of Antonio Albacete. Then we have Jose Eduardo Rodriguez and Stefan Faas on row 4. John Newell and Jonathan Andre will make up the top 10. Behind them as well, we have Mark Taylor next up. And then we have Louis Requenco and Heinrich Clemens Hecker. As you see now, the circuit goes deathly quiet all of a sudden, and it really, really does calm down. It goes very, very chill here at Misano. Everyone's going to get away and prepare for the next race of the weekend, but it's going to be Norbert Kish on pole position, with Jochen Hahn in second and Sasha Lenz in third place. I believe that, though, is the initial qualifying session rather than the Super Pole session. It seems like there are times deleted here and there for that one. But like I said before, in the earlier session we had 1, 2, 3 and then Steffi Halm with 44. But it's, in fact, it's Kiss, Lenz, Hahn, Halm, Albacete, Curzin, Rodriguez, Faas, Newell, Andre, Taylor, Requenco and Hecker. And our 13 truck field still at its full capacity for this weekend. And it's great to have all of them out there on track, and of course keeping each other on the grid as well. We were talking to some of the teams this morning, and they were saying that, you know, it's great that a lot of the teams sort of work with one another to make sure everybody is on the grid. You know, they all work together to get repairs done, to make sure that every truck is in decent racing condition so that they can keep the numbers boosted as best as possible. You know, if we do lose a truck from the weekend, it's a massive, massive shame. So a lot of these teams do an incredible job at helping each other and bringing just a positive vibe to the championship. You know, such camaraderie between them all. But we have races coming up later on today. I believe the first broadcast for the first race will start around 1 local time. And then we move a bit later into the afternoon at 4 for the fourth race of the weekend. As you see, the wonderful conditions will continue on here at Misano, and we will all be prepared for the races later on. I'll be down there doing the grid walks again, which I'm really looking forward to. We had a lot of fun with those yesterday. I hope they all looked okay, of course, and hope you all enjoyed them. We certainly had a very, very good time of it, and we hope to do the same again. There is Norbert Kish chatting away with Csaba Bako, his chief engineer, talking about the session. And there is Bellew, after a good session's hard work of grabbing another pole position here in the Goodyear FIA European Truck Racing Championship. For Norbert Kish, that will be, as I look at my notes, his 52nd pole position in his championship career here. This is going to be his 347th start in the championship. Yesterday, he made sure that he got that 80th race victory in the second race. Jochen Hahn got his 117th race win, and he still has the second most amount of podiums because he was joined on the podium yesterday by Antonio Albacete in race 1. Antonio got his 280th, yes, you heard that right, 280th podium. He's got over 500 starts. Jochen has got over 640 starts. The two of them incredibly experienced. But what we're going to do now is have a look at some of the finest pictures from that qualifying session before we say goodbye, and we will see you again in a moment.